Jawaballs!
Hi, welcome back. So here I am. What I am going to show you today is how to apply Waterslide transfers. I did a video like this years ago, and it's time for an update. So what you're going to need for this video is, I use a product called Microsol and a product called Microset. I'll show you these in a little while. I'll talk about them. A nice sharp X-Acto blade, transfer sheets, water. I use like a little, I don't know where I got this deck from, but a little container of water, just enough, a little puddle to put your transfer into. And I've got a couple of different ways I'm going to show you this. I use gloss and matte varnish. This is Rust-Oleum, Home Depot. Also, I have some Paint On Vallejo matte varnish. You could use the Games Workshop matte varnish or gloss varnish, the Paint On stuff as well if you chose. And that's about it. So let me bring you down to my workstation. Bring it down to work. Hold on, here we go. Okay. So what I have here is a drop pod that I've been working on, and as you can see, I've already pre-sprayed the door with some gloss varnish. It's much more. It's already dry. You have to let it dry first before you can work on it. So it's much more dry here, or more glossy. You can see. Games Workshop recommends you use their Paint On gloss varnish. It's up to you. I use gloss varnish. You don't have to do this at all, honestly. Here's a drop pod with a decal that I put on. You can see the three, using no varnish at all. But the problem with this, if I get the right angle, you see how it leaves like a shiny aura around the three, right? I don't like that. I want the three to look seamless, as if it's been painted on. And I'm gonna go and gloss and varnish these afterwards. But just to kind of help you skip, because I didn't use the varnish on that yet. To kind of get to a point where you don't really have to touch it up afterwards, you can pre-gloss varnish the surface. Probably the best bet is to use the Paint On Games Workshop because you have a little more control with that. I don't have any. So anyway, here's the sprayed on gloss varnish from Rust-Oleum. So the first things first is you have to get your decal. I'm putting numbers on these to match the dreadnoughts. This is number 8. I don't know if I've applied the matte varnish on there, but I will in a little while. So on this side, it's a dreadnought pod, so I'm going to add a skull on this one. So on my transfer sheet, I need to cut out the skull. Nice sharp blade, really helps. Cut out your transfer. Then you throw it into your little water pot, a little puddle. A saucer works well for this. Just push it in there and get it totally covered with water. Put it to the side. Then you go back to your area. So Microset and Microsol are two compounds designed for using with transfers. And what they do is they help the transfer adhere to the surface, and they also they work to soften the material of the transfer itself to conform to the surfaces. I don't really need it so much on this surface because it's already flat. But it's up to you. The best uses for that is like around curved areas so the transfer doesn't bubble up. Shoulder pads, round areas, or textured areas, because it softens the material so it seeps into the recessed areas to help it kind of merge with the surface you're applying it to. So you put some of the Microset on first. Push it around. It doesn't like the gloss varnish. It kind of pools up from it. That's okay. Just spread it around. And by this point, your transfer should be good to go. Only takes a minute or so in the water. I use my X-Acto blade, and I will go to the corner of it and just kind of poke it, get it out. I take it in my hand like this, Shake the water off. Oh no, don't shake too vigorously. Now use my brush. Use the brush to pull it off. You'll see it stick right to the brush. If you're quick and good, then you put it right onto the spot where you want the transfer. Oh, it fell right on, see? Then you use your brush to tease it around into place. Once you've got it on there, you get some more of the micro set. And just press it down with more micro set on your brush. Use it to kind of move it around to where you want it to be. Then you have to realize when you do have it perfect and just stop touching it, because it slides very easily at first. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell if I'm straight. Oh, I just messed it up. Okay. Gently trying to make sure all the edges are flush without moving it again and again and again. Boom. There she is. So that brings me to oh, darn it! Don't touch it. Let it set. Over here, you can see the 8 I have on this side I've already done. I'm going to use a little bit of this matte varnish I have from Vallejo to seal it on again. So once you've got the transfer, while I'm waiting for that to dry, once you got the transfer set and it's dry, take a little bit of your other varnish, and you paint that on to the glossy area to dull that back down. The whole top part of this door was very glossy from the spray I use, so I'm gonna try to just reduce that. When this model's done, I'm gonna spray it very well with varnish to completely and totally seal it up. But until then, I'm just trying to work on this one spot here. So if it's starting to gather up the paint on stuff, just use your brush, clean it off, use your brush to dig it out of the recesses. Otherwise it'll be kind of milky in there. You don't want that. I don't know what the GW name of their matte varnish is. Something like Lamian varnish or something. I don't know. Matte just means dull, the opposite of gloss. Alright, so we're going to let that kind of just dry for a while. Come back to our little thingy thing. I got like an air bubble. I'm going to put a little more micro set, because it looks like an air bubble happened underneath my transfer. And I'm going to use the micro set to wet it again. And move it around until it kind of settles. The best thing about if you get like a bubble or a rip in your transfer, it's okay, just work it right into the design of it and paint around it. I'll probably just turn that little air bubble that happened into battle damage. Yeah, see, I've kind of teased this transfer a little too much. So it's actually not liking it. The micro set really reduces the durability of the transfer. You're not supposed to play with it too much. It makes them break up. So I don't know. I think I must have touched it or something when I was moving the pot around. That's okay. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, it's gonna look kind of cool because I'm gonna paint it once the air bubbles break and it's all broken up. I'm gonna paint over it. It'll look kind of like it's just been damaged. So on this side, yeah, you can see how, wow, you can see here that the glossiness of that transfer has completely disappeared, and you almost can't see the transfer at all. Zoom back out. It's so hard to keep it in focus. So, you want to see some more? Want me to do some more of these things? I can. Here I go. I'm going to try a satin varnish as a base. A little paint-on satin varnish. My satin varnish is clogged. You know, there's lots of options. Anything kind of works. Satin's right in between matte and glossy. Let me try a different pot. Mostly you just want something shiny to take away the shiny, to help the shininess of the decal disappear. So you want a shiny surface. And if you're quick, you can actually just put the decal right into the surface without any kind of micro set at all. This is okay for flat surfaces like this. Anything rounded, like a shoulder pad on a Titan or something, I would recommend using the micro set. I've always done it without the micro set on my tanks, and it's fine. So I'm putting the second company symbol here on this drop pod. And I'm going to embed it right into the varnish. And this you have to work kind of quickly because the varnish will dry fast. This is my satin varnish. I've always been a fan of the satin varnish on my models. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pull that. It's got to be done. Yeah, just using the same brush I was just using for the satin varnish, I'm going to slide the transfer off, put it right into the wet varnish on the pod. Just give it a quick tease to straighten it out. I'm not going to touch it again now. It's done. I'm just going to let it sit there for a while. I'll dry the brush off and use the brush to kind of sop up the excess varnish off the sides again. You see some yellow hanging out over here. That's because I painted the hazard lines, and I'm just going to fix that up afterwards. I'm going to turn it into battle damage. So we'll let this sit over here and dry for a little while. I'll come back to you in a bit. Let's come back and check on my guy. I used the micro set on. So, getting rid of the micro set, I'm going to go to micro sol. Micro sol really helps the decal, the material of the decal, to settle and go away. Oh, I touched it and it messed up. You really just need to kind of touch this stuff on there. So again, the micro sol and micro set are more for rounded areas. They're not as necessary for flat spots like this. If you're just doing a quick flat surface, go with the varnish. Honestly, boom. Little gloss varnish, a little matte varnish. That should dry pretty quickly. It'll already start sealing it on there. Then your matte varnish will finish sealing it on, so it becomes just embedded within the layers on your tank. I'm going to try some of that matte varnish on this 3. I did not put any varnish at all underneath this one. Let's see what happens. See if this matte paint-on matte varnish will reduce the shininess of the 3. Whenever you're using varnish, you have to be careful that you don't apply too much because you don't want it to get frosty. Frosty varnish is not a good thing. By frosty, it starts turning white. Looks like snow. That's awful. So we'll see how that works. Frankly, I think it looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm gonna use that paint on matte varnish on everything. I was spraying matte varnish on, but the matte spray wasn't working all that well. It still had some gloss to it, and wasn't very happy with it. So I'm not gonna use the spray anymore. I'm gonna stick with this paint on matte varnish. That's working great. So I'm going to pause this and then come back once this has dried thoroughly. Back in a few. Okay, I'm back. I was working on some infantry as I was waiting for this stuff to dry. So here's the pod with the skull. If you remember right, I was having a hard time with the skull. Was this the same pod I was just working on? I think it was, yeah. The everything settled in on the skull. Am I sure this is the same pod? Yeah. And it actually came out very nice. It looks great. The solution, you know, it was a little rough, a little broken up, but the solution kind of helped the whole decal to settle down nice and flat. So all I'm going to do really now is just paint a little bit of that matte varnish on it and call it quits on this guy. Where's my matte varnish? This is my Vallejo matte varnish. Zoom out so you can see what I'm doing. Always had a problem with that. So I'm just painting the matte over all the gloss varnish I put on there. So just bring it back down. I need to see if Vallejo offers this in a spray can, as airbrush solution. So I can just spray it on. Because I'm not liking much of the spray cans that I've found. I think Testors makes one, I don't know. I don't want to get something that's going to get cloudy. I'm just sucking it out of the recessed areas here. And I'm fairly pleased with that. Let's go back to, I think I had put a blood drop on one of my other ones here. Let's see. Yeah, I did. Here's the blood drop. I'm going to paint the matte varnish onto the blood drop as well. I think here I put the satin varnish down first. Don't remember if I also painted matte on top of that satin. A little dab or another application ain't gonna hurt me. Gotta say, I'm fairly pleased with that skull. There you have it, Waterslide Transfers 101. Hope you enjoy. So, again, a little close. Whoa, too close. Like always, it helps a lot. Like and share these videos. Tell your friends. Tell them Jawaballs is back. Come on back and enjoy the fun. Tactical, educational, fun videos talking about life, talking about goodness, and just enjoying the ride. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Talk to you soon.